golem is an unformed vessel. Unformed. And what is that? Person, when someone else, he interrupts his conversation. A person speaks without thinking. So that's unformed. You understand? Before he starts speaking, he looks like a regular human being. When do you realize he's unformed? Golem means it's only it's not the fully developed product. It's only when you begin speaking. It's the idea. So that's exactly what we're saying. Once the person begins speaking, you understand whether he's developed or is not developed. Okay? We left off on Samach Chesem and Beis. I'd like to just go over the Gemara just a little bit through some of the Tosas here. It's important. The Gemara originally said, the Mishnah says that if a person has a child from a Shifra Cananis, from a Canaanite slave woman, the child is not Jewish. Why? Because Ein bo kiddushin, you're not able to marry her, and she has no relevance to marry anyone. So then the Gemara says, how do we know the child assumes her status? On the very top on Samach Chesem Beis. That the woman, that the child was fathered by an Eved Ivri, by a Jewish slave. Nevertheless, when he's emancipated, when he's freed after 6 years, it says the woman, the slave woman who was given to him as a wife, and the children which he fathered, they remain the chattels of the master. So what does that mean? They assume the identical status as she is. So the Gemara says, Nochris Minola, what about a non-Jewish woman? Person fathers a child from a non-Jewish woman. How do we know the child is not a Jew? Okay? Dichsiv. Nochris Minola, Omakro lo sischatin bom. Right? The Torah says, lo sischatin. What's the meaning of chitun? They're not marriageable. Not marriageable.
Why do you need both?
No, we're talking about two different people.
Shivcha
Kanaz. No, Shivcha Kanaz is a semi-Jew. So you'd say it's a koshke. Right? Maybe it's a koshke. That's the way you should ask the question. If a woman who's a semi-Jew, she's obligated to observe all the mitzvahs of a woman. If you marry her, it's not a marriage. If you have a child from her, the child assumes the status of what? Of the Shivcha Kanaz. So what about a non-Jewish woman? It's a koshke, right? How do we know the marriage is not a marriage? So you say, there's a difference. There's a difference. There's a difference. What's the difference? Like this. There's a question when a master emancipates a Shifcha Kananis or an Evet Kanani. What does he become? He becomes a full Jew. Right? Shichrur, emancipation, brings about a transition from slave status to full status, full Jewish status. Says the Machlok Shishonim, after he's emancipated, the tefillah, he has to go to the mikveh. Is the tefillah doraisa or is tefillah drabanan? That he has to immerse himself in the mikveh is doraisa drabanan. So some Rishonim say that it's only rabbinical. Why is it rabbinical? But again, to be a Jew, you have to go to the mikveh. So the Rishonim, Reb Chaim Brisker explains it this way. I think the Rambam uses an expression. It's a chatzi gerus. To become an Evet Kanani, it's a half conversion. Let's say a person is a non-Jew wants to become an Evet Kanani. What does he need? He needs Mila and Tefillah. He is circumcised and he goes to the mikveh. And he's immersed to be an Evet Kanani in the presence of a Bezdin. That's what a person becomes an Evet Kanani. And he has to accept, we had Tosas earlier, he accepts the mitzvahs of an Isha. He accepts upon himself the mitzvahs that a woman must keep before they immerse him into in the mikveh. Okay? So the question is, so why isn't he a full Jew? He should be a full Jew. He's accepting mitzvahs. He's undergoing Mila and Tefillah. So Reb Chaim explains, because that there's a master who owns him, that doesn't allow the gerus to fully affect him, to be the full Jew. But the moment you remove the mastership of the mortal master, now his original status overtakes him fully. This is like we spoke earlier. We had the Gemara Daf Zayin that if a person's magdish, let's say an animal, consecrates half an animal. He says, I want half of the animal to be a shlomim. What's the halacha? The whole animal becomes, it's called hispashtos. Why? That since the whole animal can be consecrated, so when you consecrate half, the whole animal is consecrated. What about if you have a slave, right? And the slave is owned by two masters. An animal that's owned by two masters. Two people own an animal, and one person consecrates his half, and then the other person consecrates his. So you can only consecrate what's yours. You can't consecrate something that's not yours. Now the other person goes and he transfers ownership to the other person. So there's nothing makif. There's nothing preventing that. What happens? The kiddush takes over the whole animal. There's a whole discussion over there. It's called dichud. That since when he initially consecrated, the animal couldn't be brought, so there was a delay. That's the only question. But in terms of the whole animal becomes consecrated. So similarly here, the whole person, the moment the master emancipates him, the original conversion process, since there's nothing preventing it from overtaking him, he becomes a full Jew. Therefore, the tefillah after the emancipation is only rabbinic tefillah. It's not on the doraisa. That's how Reb Chaim explains why the tefillah is only drabanan, it's not doraisa. Because initially, it's a full conversion. Except having the mortal master doesn't allow him to assume the position of being a full Jew. The moment that's removed, now he becomes a full Jew.
Was this voluntary?
What? The initial? Yeah, he was voluntary. Voluntary became a Eved Kanani. A non-Jew sold himself into slavery to become an Eved Kanani, to a Jew. She agreed.
So he knew that he was going to become a Jew when he sold himself.
No, he didn't. If the master never emancipates him, he'll be an Eved Kanani till he dies. And his children will be Avodim Kanani. Right? But initially, what was the process that he entered into? The status he assumed was what? Really, the process, he should have become a full Jew. Except there was something preventing it to fully affect him. Yes. Immersion and his circumcision, both. Same thing. No, but if you say, but the others say that's no right, that's not the understanding. No, it's not because there's a mortal master. It's a different reality. Eved Kanani is one status, being a Jew is another status. Now that you're entering into another dimension of being, now you have to undergo it. You have to undergo tefillah. Another one, right? That's what I'm saying.
Didn't we say that after born a Jew is not supposed to release every time?
But let's say he did. It's an Isser Asay. But the Gemara says the times that he's permitted. The Gemara tells over the story, Rebbe Lezer needed a minion. And he only had 9 people. So he emancipated his slave to be number 10. Right? He was a costly 10th man. Okay? So the Gemara says, because since it was of such great necessity, that overrode the provision of emancipating the slave. Because it says, Avodo le'olam, they should be slaves forever, Eved Kanani. Therefore, it's an Isser Asay. You're violating a positive commandment when you emancipate a Eved Kanani. So I'm saying like this. A person who fathers a child from a Shifra Kananis, you say, how do we know it's not yours? So the Pasuk was saying, because it's a Yishav Yoldet Tila Adoneo. Because there is a master. Because the woman is a chattel, the children are the chattel. So therefore, that's the reason why they can't identify with you. Because there's a master. What about a non-Jewish woman? Her identity, she has no pedigree. I mean, she has no identity. So maybe that there's nothing interfering. Maybe the child should be identified with the father. Therefore, we have to cite another pasuk. It says, Lo sischatin. First, we're about marriage. Marriage, she's not marriageable. It says, Lo sischatin. The concept of chitun, which is marriage, has no relevance to a non-Jew. Then it says, what about the child? Maybe the child would be Jewish. Gemara cites another pasuk. What, the child's not even Jewish. Okay? V'lo kamosim in olon. Gemara quotes the pasuk, Reb Yochanan mishum Reb Shimi Choy, Domakro, Ki Yosef bintcho mi'acharai. Now, the Torah says you should not give your daughter to a non-Jew for marriage, and you should not allow your son to marry a non-Jewish woman. It says, Ki Yosef es bintcho mi'acharai. Because he will remove your son from me. Meaning the father, who's a non-Jew, will remove your son from me. Meaning the child is a Jewish child, and being a pagan, the father, he will cause the Jewish child to be a pagan. That's Yosir as bin Chomiachrai. So what? But the Torah uses the term Yosir. What are we concerned? that the non-Jewish father will remove the Jewish child from me. He will raise him like a non-Jew. So bincha bo Yisrael is kori bincho. So the child that's conceived from a Jewish woman, that's bincho, and that's what Torah Yosir. Vein bincho habo min ha'oved is kolchom kori bincho. But the child that's born from a non-Jewish mother, that's not bincho. So there's no concern. He'll raise him as a pagan. He is a pagan. From me. The father, the non-Jew who fathered the child from the Jewish woman. That's why you should not allow your daughter to marry a non-Jew. Because the non-Jewish father will turn away your child, meaning the Jewish child, from me. No, the child is Jew. If the child's not a Jew, you're not turning away the child from God. The child's not a Jew. From me. No. The goy. Marries a Jewish woman. Not married. They have a child. How do I know he's a Jew? Because there's the reason why it's forbidden for to conceive a child from a non-Jew, because that non-Jewish father will turn away your son from me.
Your son is hers.
That means he's a Jew. If he's a goy, he's not turning away anybody from anywhere. He's not Jewish. Your son means the grandfather, the Jewish grandfather's son. Your grandchild, right? Your grandchild will be turned away from me because it's your daughter. So we're only concerned about when the mother is Jewish, but not if the mother was not Jewish. There's no turning away because the child's not Jewish. Okay, that's how the Gemara is explaining it. This is Rabbi Yochanan, name of Shimi Choy. Omer Avino. It's not turned away. It was never a Jew. Actually, the mother also has some degree of influence. Okay, we'll see. But this is the way Rashi, the Rabbeinu learns differently. We have Sitos how he explains the pasuk, but that's how Rashi learns. Because this is Yosir, we're only concerned about the male turning away the child. We're not concerned about the mother who's not Jewish turning away the child. So evidently, if the mother is not Jewish, that's not considered turning away the child because the child's not Jewish. So there's nothing to turn away. No, the main thing was who they married. Did they marry Canaanim or not Canaanim? The only woman they could marry were Canaanim. Because we find that the others themselves were very adamantly opposed to a Canaanite. Because Canaan is a cursed stock. It's not Jewish. Not Jewish. No, that is their own family. That's their own family. Correct. See, David is grasping for something. Just let me tell you what the source is. There's a Ramban. It says, Hashem berachas Avram bakol. It says, God blessed Avram with everything. So Rabbi Yehuda says in Ramban, besides the Medrash, that he did not have a daughter. The bracha was that Avram did not have a daughter. So the Ramban says, what was the bracha that he didn't have a daughter? Because if he would have a daughter, that means he would have had to marry her to a pagan. And ultimately, she would have become a pagan. Because a wife normally goes with the husband. So she wouldn't have been under his influence any longer. So she would have become a pagan. So what kind of nachas would Abraham have from this? Therefore, it was a bracha that he did not have a daughter. That's how the Ramban explains the Medrash. It's a question. It's a question. But I'm saying, this according to that interpretation, that opinion, the bracha was not to have a daughter. Shelo hayelo bas, that he did not have a daughter. That's what I'm saying. But over there, it's not because the father's influence. It's because a wife goes to the community of the husband. So she would have been in a pagan community. Not only because the influence of the father. It's not saying that. What you're saying, it would be more than, it says, Amoni v'lo Amonis, Moavi v'lo Moavis. It says you're permitted to marry the female of Moab, Moabite or Ammonis converts, she's legitimate. He's not legitimate. The male line is not legitimate. So what's it so good? So it says, because they did not host us, offer bread and water. So it says, because darkol shalish, because a man is the one who should go out. A wife can't offer hospitality without the husband's permission. So the failing of not offering hospitality, that failing is a failing of the male line, not the female line. Okay, that's Chazal. But others want to say, because again, if you have a certain characteristic which is a corrupted characteristic, that we don't want it to dilute the characteristic of chesed among Jews. So the male, who's the dominant figure, he will influence the child to assume that. But the woman, who's the secondary figure, she won't have that degree of influence, therefore, we're not concerned. That's what a Torah permits the female. Okay. Let's see. But originally the Gemara says, how do we know the marriage is not a marriage? The marriage was says lo seschatim. Ein bohem chitun. Now Tosas asks a question. Omakra lo seschatim, pirush b'konchis, lo yelucha behen Torah chasnus. The laws of marriage have no relevance when you marry a non-Jew. Miukoshe? It's a phenomenal question. Shrei hai kro lo mayri b'ovdi kochovim. The Apostle Luschati is not speaking about marrying a non-Jew. Luschati, first of all, the Gemara discusses referring to the Shiva Amim, 7 nations of Canaan. It says you should not marry them. When should you marry them? Pre-conversion or post-conversion? If you did not. If you did not. Like you didn't kill them. No. Like you didn't kill them. First, if they convert, you're not permitted to kill them. You only kill them if they're non-Jews, right? If they're not Jewish. If they convert, you're not permitted to kill them any longer. They converted. Kasha for mice. They converted. Person concealed his pedigree and he converts. Are you permitted to marry him? So the Gemara says in Yevamot, it's close to the Gemara, Rava says, Lo seschatein, the Torah says, Lo yiben chasnus. Now that they're marriageable, if you marry them, you're in violation. So the Gemara says it's speaking begerusa below begeyusam. It's speaking post-conversion, not pre-conversion. So if that's the case, how does the Gemara cite this pasuk that lo seschatein, that the reason why when you marry a non-Jewish woman, the marriage is not a marriage, was as lo seschatein. You should not have chasnus. That's post-conversion. When she is marriageable, and despite that she's marriageable, nevertheless there's a Torah violation that you're not permitted to marry them. That's Tos's question. Kosher. Sherei hai kro lo maribov gechovim do gabik zaina mim hu dichsiv kidiron perka orel omerovo begiruson isbu chasnus. After they convert, they have relevance to marriage. Pirush iso lo seschatin yeshbem ubigiyuson. But when they're goyim, less lent chasnus. The provision of chasnus has no relevance to them. Lo shachu chasnus labra olav mishum lo seschatin. So it's difficult. How does the Gemara cite this verse to teach me that when you marry a non-Jew, the marriage is not a marriage? The Gemara says explicitly this lav only applies when they're Jewish. Although they are marriageable, but it's considered illegitimate. Therefore, if you marry them, you're in violation of lo seschatin. So how does the Gemara here cite the pasuk as a basis that you cannot marry a non-Jew? That's Tos's question on Rashi. It's a phenomenal question. Okay? The Gemara says explicitly when it says lo seschatin, if one of the 7 nations of Canaan converts to be Jewish, so you'd say now they're Jewish, maybe you're permitted to marry them. Torah says lo seschatin. Even though they're Jewish, and although if you marry them, the marriage is a marriage, you're not permitted to be with them. You're in violation of the law, lo seschatin. So how does the Gemara over here cite the post lo seschatin to teach me that if you marry a non-Jewish woman, the marriage is not a marriage? The Gemara says explicitly, it's only speaking when they are marriageable, they have relevance to marriage, there's a prohibition to marry them. That's Tos's question. Just want to mention earlier, the Rishonim say, there's a famous machlokus in Tmura between Abai and Rava. Ovid mahani, Ovid lo mahani. When the Torah says you're not permitted to do something, and you cross the line, when you do it, is it effective or not effective? Machlokus Abai and Rava. Abai says Ovid mahani. Rava says Ovid lo mahani. And the Gemara goes through about 2 pages, back and forth, each one bringing proofs to what he says. Meaning, the Torah says you're not permitted to marry, let's say, a grusha, a divorced woman. So, if you're not permitted, if you're not permitted, so how could you say that your action should be effective? The Torah doesn't condone it, doesn't want it to be. It should not be. So why, if you marry, the Kohen marries the divorcee, why is it a marriage? Logically, it should not be a marriage. So the Gemara has to cite a pasuk. Really, logically, it should not be. It's the exception. And Abai keeps saying these are all exceptions.
Are you able to go out if it doesn't?
No, of course. You'd still go through the motion. The Gemara cites psukim for the exceptions. The Gemara says you're not permitted to make tumura. If you have a consecrated animal, you say B should be like A. So the kiddushin does transfer. And you're in violation of the law of lo yomir. You're not permitted to transfer kedusha from one carbon to another, right? Torah violation. But if you say Eov and lo mahani, the Torah prohibits it. So why does B become the equivalent of A? So Torah says, "Who tomorrow say yakotish?" That's the exception. And whatever you ask, that's the exception. I mean, there's so many exceptions. You say that should be the rule, and where it doesn't work, that should be the exception. But that's the argument. Do you see it as the exception, or do you see it as the rule? It's called chotei niskar. The Torah says, don't sin. After you sin, what you can reap the rewards of your sin. Lo yeh chotei niskar. Right? It's interesting. The halacha is that if a person steals the thief, and now when it's in before he returns it to the person he stole from, let's say it's destroyed in a situation where it's beyond his control. Let's say it's struck by lightning. Onus. The thief has full liability. He has unlimited liability. It's chayv b'onsim. That's the halacha. Until he returns it, he has unlimited liability. So the question is why? So the way the commentators explain it, because when a person steals something, you have kinyon igzela. You have kinyon igzela. Now, what happens if a person steals something? I steal a car from a rental company, and you normally pay a luxury car $300 a day, and I use the car for 3 months. Do I have to pay the rental company for the usage of the car? The halacha is ruled in Shulchan Aruch based on the Gemara. You own nothing. Why? Because when you steal, the Torah gives you an intrinsic financial ownership in the stolen item. So to a degree, it's the equivalent of using your own car, the item. Therefore, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay schirus. The rental fee, you don't have to pay. As long as it's not a noticeable depreciation. Unless you altered it. If you altered it, it's something else. No. No, still not. No, still not. Still, you don't pay. You don't pay for the wear and tear. Unless you've done a physical alteration on it, you don't pay. You steal something, it's worth $1,000. When you return it, it's worth $1. What's the halacha? You have to make up the difference. You don't have to, and because you withheld it, that's why it depreciated. You pay, you just return the item. As long as the item exists, you just return the item. If the item doesn't exist, then you have to pay the original value. But if it exists, you just return the item itself. That's the halacha. Okay? She says it's not fair. It doesn't make any sense. So they explain it this way. Why does a thief have full liability? If a person borrows something, a shoel. So the Gemara says a shoel, of all the custodians, the shoel has unlimited liability. Why? Because kol hano shalom. Because you have all the benefits. You have all the benefits and you have no financial investment, outlay. So the Torah says, so who has all benefits? An owner. If an owner owns an object and it should be destroyed regardless, whether it was beyond his scope or not, he takes the loss. So if you have all the benefits of the owner, you shouldn't have unlimited liability. So that's why the borrower has unlimited liability. It's the similar principle here. The Torah gives you an interest in the item to give you full liability. Because otherwise, how do you have full liability? Even though there's a benefit, because now if he uses it, he doesn't have to pay the fee. But to protect the victim who he victimized, we have to give him that right, because that's the only way we're able to offer that protection to the victim who was victimized.
Everybody knows that the day you take a new car off the lot, it drops by 30 or 40% in value. You drive it 5 miles, that's it. Okay? There's a drop in value. Now steals a new car off the lot for one day, and then he returns it. That car is depreciated 30%.
I'll give you a better case. Better case. I'll give you a better case. Person steals a trailer load of bread, Erev Pesach, right, from a Jewish owner. Okay? And the rabbi hears about it, reprimands him, he does tshuva, the thief. I will return it. He returns it after Pesach. So the person gets back, goes to ask the shayla about rabbi. Rabbi says, you got to burn all the bread. Cham Shavuot Pesach. Okay? That's it. Where's the justice? What he returned something, but it has no value. It's more than depreciated. It's worthless. Torah says when you return it, you only have to, restitution is only when the item no longer exists. If it no longer exists, there's restitution. If it exists, you only have to return the item itself. That's a chok. That's chok. That's chok.
There is an injustice in it. Exactly what you're just doing now.
Person has a Mona Lisa. Okay? And you want it. The seller doesn't want to sell it, and you steal it. And after you steal it, you make an alteration, a noticeable alteration. It belongs to the thief. Where's the justice? The man didn't want to sell it, because Torah says you only have an obligation to return the item when it's intact as you stole it. But if it's a noticeable alteration, then there's an obligation of restitution, and the item belongs to the thief. Okay? So you're able to circumvent the halacha. But that's what the Torah says. See, again, to use the term, where's the justice? We live in a society what justice is. It's justice. We don't appreciate what that justice is. We don't appreciate what that justice is. This reminds me of, the Vilna Gaon says, the Mishnah says in Brachos, that the mitzvah shluch hakan, it says, you send away the mother bird, then you take the chicks, or the eggs. But you're not permitted to take the mother bird together with the chicks or with the eggs. Otherwise, you're in violation of lo saseh in a mitzvah saseh. Shalach te shalach. Lo sikar im alaboni. That's what Torah says. Wait, so the Mishnah says a person prays to Hashem for Rachmanos and say, Yagir rachmecho, your mercy should come upon me as your mercy comes upon the nest of the bird. You should demonstrate the same degree of mercy upon me and that. Says Mishaskin also. You silence him. Why? What's wrong? Hashem is all merciful. Just look at the mercy. You have to say. So the Vilna Gaon cites Yerushalmi. The Yerushalmi says, you don't think the mother bird understands what's happening. She understands what's happening. What happens is, the moment you send her off, you know what she does? She finds the closest body of water and she drowns herself. Because she cannot tolerate the pain knowing that her chicks were taken from her, or the eggs were taken. So what? Yagir rachmecho. This is the rachmim you want. See, it's the ultimate cruelty. So how do we understand it? You don't understand it. Chok. So therefore, the many things we don't understand, but yet we process them within our own limitation. That's how the Vilna Gaon explains the mission in Brachos. If it doesn't exist, there is restitution. If, let's say, he destroyed the stolen item, then there is restitution. There's restitution. The item's intact, appreciation. As long as the item's considered still intact, you return the item. Okay? You know, I always said, you know, the halacha is within halacha, capital punishment. Witnesses come, they interrogate them, they give a verdict of command to death, then they find the witnesses were conspiring. Right? They were conspiring. Edom Zomian. And we find them that they lied. You see? We put the man to death. Innocent man was put to death. Where's the justice? The Torah is supposed to be Hatsur Tomim Polo. Right? God's actions are perfect. Where's the justice? So, David, how do you respond to that?
I don't know if you have any difficulty.
Why don't you have difficulty?
The Torah gave man a system and a set of rules to judge these things, and we conducted ourselves according to these rules.
Okay, I will tell you the way I understand it, which answers your question there. Nothing happens by accident or it's coincidental. The man may not be guilty and deserve put to death because he committed this murder. But the reason, since he was put to death within the context of the system, that's Atzur Tomim Polo. It was meant he should die. He should be put to death. That's justice. You don't understand the justice, it's irrelevant whether you understand it. But that's God's justice. But what's the liability? For why? God has an account on this man. The man has a record. It's the same thing here. Same thing over here. But where's the justice? The man's taking a financial hit, a financial loss. You're meant to take that financial loss. So in terms of the one who returns it, he's met the criteria of returning a stolen item. So whether it's returned or not, what determines that? Whether the victim, whether he should be compensated or not compensated. Whether there should be restitution. That's based on God's evaluation of what justice is. Does he deserve to take the loss? Doesn't he deserve to take the loss? Except we don't understand the picture. See, it's interesting because I want to discuss something with David. There's a Sifsei Chachomim where he explains Rashi. It says, why did Hashem harden Paro's heart? Because if he wouldn't harden his heart, he would have destroyed him in either case. Because why did he send us out of Egypt? It was under duress. Did he really do tshuva? He didn't do tshuva. But if Hashem punishes him afterwards, what are people going to say? The man did tshuva. God is not fair. God is not equitable. So you know what God says? The man has to be destroyed. But if I destroy him, it's going to be Chil Hashem. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to harden his heart. Let the world see who he is. And now they'll understand why I'm destroying him. Understand? So that's why, that was the value of hardening his heart. It's the same thing here. It's not justice. It is justice. Exact. Sur Tomim Polo. We don't understand. Okay? That's part of the Chil Hashem. That we don't understand, that's Chil Hashem. But if you would understand, you understand God is just. Okay?